Welcome to another episode of Trash Compactor, where we're going to be talking about episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. My name is Josh, and joining me today is James.
Hello.
John.
Hello.
Russ.
Howdy.
Mickey.
Hey.
And Murray.
Oh, hello.
And what I thought we'd do today, rather than start with overall thoughts, I think we all have a lot of opinions about this episode. I think a lot happened. There's a lot to talk about. And I want to start off by talking about all of the Mando, Grogu, Luke, Ahsoka stuff that happened first, and then we'll move on to the Tatooine and Timothy Oliphant stuff. James, why don't you start us off with your thoughts on seeing Luke Skywalker and Mando and Grogu again?
Oh, can we just have a Luke Skywalker show at this point? I mean, we could do it, right? I mean, this is like the dream Luke Skywalker that I've been wanting to see since I saw Return of the Jedi and read the expanded universe that now it's been retconned, that this is the Luke I wanted and always dreamed of seeing, and now I got to see him. I mean, because that obviously implies I did not like the way Luke was brought back into the universe in the sequels, but that's a whole other conversation. But
I don't know that it is a whole other conversation. I
think they're connected a little bit.
Yeah, it was that I can see story-wise why it's interesting to go that way. But to have this character you followed from, episode 4 to episode 6, and then we pick up with him being a sad, bitter Jedi who's disillusioned by the whole journey the whole process that he's been through at that point was, to me, a little disappointing and not the way I would have liked to have seen the characters, especially, as Russ has said before, I read the expanded, universe novels and the Dark Horse comics, and Luke, that's more of the Luke I was expecting maybe we would pick up with, and it's not the Luke we got. And listen, I can understand the merits of that storytelling. It just wasn't the Luke I wanted, so I don't discount whatever the storyteller's vision was, but this is the Luke I wanted to see, and to get a snippet of all the things that we knew he could do. We got to see him fight at the end of Mando season 2, but now we get to see him being master Jedi and teacher, and it fulfilled what I wanted to see for so many years.
To be fair, that whole sequence on, I don't know the name of that planet, but the training sequence in particular with Luke and Grogu, I thought all of that was some of the most beautiful Star Wars I've ever seen. And it's interesting too, because it's the exact inverse of the Luke and Yoda training on Dagobah scene. It's bright and cheerful, and Luke is training the Yoda, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
he talked about Yoda. He's like, I knew a master named Yoda.
Yeah.
He's also wearing the same backpack from The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
Nerd.
I know.
and I'm a Rebels Clone Wars person, so this episode obviously Dave Filoni threaded the needle so perfectly. But to see Ahsoka and Luke, and they talk about Anakin.
Yes.
They talk about their experience with his father. It was moving. That was
it's how can they not if they're in the same room?
Yeah.
Right. It means they must have had a talk at some point about Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Which even for me, who, I've only seen the Clone Wars and Rebels intermittently. I haven't seen them all. But even for me, that was very moving, knowing the relationship Ahsoka had with Anakin. And also for me, it just really ties up that whole relationship between Luke and his father, between Anakin and Luke, that the movies themselves never really do. Because, of course, the final scene in Return of the Jedi, that's not Hayden Christensen. So you don't have that connection that's sort of they're finally meeting and he's finally forgiving him. It's there in the text, but it's not there on screen. But the only other thing too that I want to say about before we really get into it is the technology for Luke. Luke looked flawless 99% of the time.
Yeah.
He looked really
good.
He looked really, really good. And I do know that after Mando finale season 2, there was a guy on YouTube who replaced the digital Luke that ILM had done with a deep fake that he had created, and it was head and shoulders above what ILM had actually done for the show. And I know that ILM hired that guy.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
They should retcon that, how they keep adding dancers.
Yeah, the special edition of Mando.
They could.
Yeah.
They could just go back and fix
should.
it. I don't see why they wouldn't with all the special edition stuff. You're right. Totally.
I don't want to get into that.
Whatever.
But John, your thoughts on that whole sequence?
I really enjoyed that sequence for similar reasons of just seeing the connection between Luke and Grogu, Also, when Mando shows up, it's really heartfelt when he's really deciding on whether or not he should actually approach him or not. And I found that stuff to be very captivating. And to the point where, like, you see the Naboo starfighter fly away in the distance, and Grogu raises his hand. I got kind of teary eyed. I was like, "Oh no, he loves him so much," you know. Like,
Yeah.
But
so did I. I thought it was maybe just because I'm a father now, so maybe that was it. But hearing you, I guess it's not just me.
I think it's just universal. That said, though, there's some nitpicky things I had about it.
Lay it on me.
Okay, well, first of all, if you see the behind the scenes of how they made Luke in the season finale of Mandalorian, you'll know that they use, I think, like artificial intelligence to make his voice. Like, I thought he was dubbed over.
Oh,
so
really? I couldn't tell.
Well, it's a computer that made his voice. And I was aware of that. And then in this episode, I think they did the same thing. And so all of his line deliveries kind of sound weird.
Like he's reading off the cue cards. Yeah.
And I think there's no reason why they couldn't just get another actor, maybe even someone like Matt Mercer, who voices him in the video games, to just do the voice over this AI created character anyway. So that's a nitpick. A very tiny nitpick is that I think they could like update his look a little bit. Like, we know it's Luke now. They could just kind of do something different with him, you know, but you know, whatever. Tiny nitpick.
Well, that's interesting because actually, if you look at the concept art that they have in the credits, he was wearing something a little different than what he was wearing in the actual episode. So I think, so that was obviously a discussion because it's not what they went with. So
no, they went with the same outfit that he had at the end of the finale. Russ, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to talk about Star Wars laundry. Like, you know, we see so many of these characters in the same outfits all the time. I think Shadow of the Empire kind of addressed, you know, where they got some, like, you find out where Luke gets this outfit, if it's roughly the same style, and where Leia gets the bounty hunter outfit. But like, is there some sort of self laundering system? Are these clothes like special fibers?
In Solo, we see the wardrobe that's on the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. Well, Lando's wardrobe, yeah. So, but I'm just wondering, like, do these folks really smell bad? Like when they're near each other? Like,
it's maybe their showering powers in the galaxy far, far away are so good.
No, it's like
wars eliminated.
It's
especially on Tatooine,
right?
with those. Yeah. Especially on Tatooine with those twin suns and all that heat. There's a
lot of sweat going on Tatooine, and so it's just been on my mind. Like, but now Luke's outfit does look a little bit different. Like, it looks like
slightly
it's more robe like. It's more kind of like pulled over.
Like
it's more
he's wearing
more tunic in Jedi.
Yeah, it looks like he's wearing a Taekwondo gi in the last one of those scenes. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And they always try to, even with the original outfit from the original trilogy, they try to make him look kind of like a karate gi sort of student thing. I get it. I think it's fine. Like it's such a minor nitpicking thing, but
it's
kind of related to what I'm going to say now, which is my only kind of like, I would say like bigger critique about it, is that I don't necessarily agree with the direction of him being so dogmatic with the old Jedi teachings, because I feel like Luke in the original trilogy, now this is the way that I perceive Luke Skywalker. Everybody has their own vision of it, you know? That's why Last Jedi was such a big controversial movie. But I think Luke is, in my opinion, kind of defined by his belief and his relationships to his friends and family, to the point when he saves the day by believing his dad can still be good, you know? And so it's about his attachments that make him different and make him kind of special. Yeah. And so in this one, he's like, fuck the attachments. And it's like, what? Yeah. I don't know. And like, and what's even interesting about, to bring it back to the nitpicking of the costume, I just told Josh, right before we did this podcast, I was watching the tail end of Return of the Jedi. And over the course of the entire movie, Luke starts off looking very Jedi-esque, and then he loses the cloak. And then he has a tunic over his like black shirt, and then he loses the tunic. And then he has a gunshot on his hand to remind him that he's different. And then by the end of the movie, he's figuratively and literally stripped down to the bare bones of who this person is. He's basically just wearing like a shirt, pants, boots, and like the shirt's all like fucking floppy. He looks like anyone else, you know? And I think that's like visual storytelling that kind of goes with the metaphor of him kind of breaking down to his fundamentals of what his priorities are. And then seeing him now, looking very Jedi-like and very dogmatic in the old school ways of the Jedi, I think was kind of jarring because I was like, I don't know. I just feel like he would have a different philosophy. I think he'd be more Bruce Lee about this and less ancient master,
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
So that's exactly what I wanted to talk about, because he doesn't learn that. Nobody realizes that that's what made him special until he realizes it and Yoda realizes it in The Last Jedi.
Which is a very long time to learn that lesson. I
Right.
just thought it was apparent before the sequel movies even came out.
Yeah.
You know?
To the viewers, but not to the characters.
Right.
And if they are saying, okay, now Luke is going to go off and rebuild the Jedi, no one has told him why the Jedi failed, why they collapsed.
He just thinks it's bad luck, maybe, or something.
So he's following the old teachings and everything, and he's trying to do it literally by the book.
Mm-hmm.
So this, to me, is actually showing us the journey from how we get to the end of Return to the Jedi to where he ends up in The Last Jedi. He's making a mistake. He's trying to rebuild the Jedi.
Now I hear you.
He shouldn't do that.
I hear you, and I completely agree with you. I think that's exactly what they're doing. And I also think, as a storytelling device, if they don't show Luke Skywalker anymore, which I kind of hope they don't, because at a certain point, if you keep going back to the well, it's just going to go dry. And I feel like if they don't show Luke anymore, that works perfectly. But if they keep showing Luke, he has nowhere else to go, and I feel like if
no, he's gonna go down.
No, he's going to go down to The Last Jedi. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, if he, it kind of narrows the path of how he can be perceived or executed as a character compared to if he's trying to do something new and he just fucks up doing something new. That type of thing, in which case he can go anywhere as a character. But now it's like he's getting more and more and more confined into a very narrow path for his character. I think if that's the way they're going to do it. You see what I'm trying to say?
I see what you're saying. I'm not necessarily sure that I agree. I think there's a lot of places that they can go. It's just that we know where he ends up, obviously. But I was really, when I saw that, him literally making Grogu choose between the one who he loves or
Lone Wolf and Culp.
Like that was some fucking horseshit Jedi stuff.
Yeah, I was like, it was a great scene. No,
it was a great scene.
Lone Wolf and Cub. But I was watching it, and I was like, you know what? Fuck Luke. Fuck the Jedi. Fuck this.
Fuck the Jedi. No, exactly.
I was like, I was so anti-Jedi in that scene.
But that's exactly my point, though. That's where Luke. That's why Luke.
That's where he gets to. In The Last Jedi, he's like, fuck the Jedi. Fuck all that. Right. I totally get it, but I just go ahead, Barry.
Okay, because I'm gonna lose my mind because I hear what you guys are saying, and I'm not saying that I disagree, but I don't think I agree because like there's a certain amount of self-realization, right? Like, so if his whole journey of being a Jedi is his masters with Obi-Wan and Yoda being like, you can't be attached to anybody, you can't do that, and then he breaks that and like accomplishes what he does, right? He brings down the Empire and stuff like that. There would be a self-realization in that of like, no, like kind of like very like, I don't know, Frank Sinatra or some shit, like I did it my way type thing. And there would be like, because Return of the Jedi ends happy. And where I think, since this takes place so close to Return of the Jedi, I think that realization would still be there. I think what happens with Ben Solo breaks him. And that's why he starts scrambling to like, what did I do wrong? Because that's his first
attachments. No, because of the attachments. Because he's like, okay, like I have to be Jedi about this. I know he's my nephew, but I need to do the Jedi thing. He does it, and that breaks him.
But if he was defying all his teachings and accomplished what he accomplished, why would he then just months later or a year later, like revert back to something that he never even believed in the first place?
Because he needs to find out what the Jedi are to rebuild the Jedi Order. The mistake is that he shouldn't be rebuilding the Jedi Order. He should be doing something new. And I think that he and also Yoda and also Obi-Wan, I don't know if they commune again in the new canon, but they probably thought the reason he beat the Emperor was because only the son of Anakin would be able to beat the Emperor. I don't think they realize. I don't think even Yoda realizes. But until Last Jedi, the reason he won was because he deviated from
Obi-Wan says, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could imagine. So if he's still more powerful than you could imagine, and he's still not seeing the whole picture, that seems weird. Like then he's no different from when he was
I think that was just
like a
shit
man. I was
talking
going
at
to say,
Vader.
but also like if he
What if it's a
if he
fake
gets
out?
to
That's what I'm thinking.
But I agree with Murray too,
That's
because it's one of those
interesting,
things where it's like he gets to this point, and we as the viewer, after watching a movie series, get to that point. So as you said before, Josh, we know this. If all the viewers know this, it's like then you kind of have to work with that expectation, and you can't have characters. I don't want to say being dumb, but
not
just being
knowing
like,
themselves
being like
at all.
purposefully obtuse, and
Yeah.
it's just like we all know this
for the sake of
so-
story. It seems like,
Exactly.
for the
So
sake
it's like
of drama.
it's weird, you know.
What I think the show is doing, I think it's showing why following a dogma is bad. That's also paralleled with the Mando story.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Like, so we see this in the real world. Like, you say that they're being willfully obtuse. We see it every day. There are people who are doing incredibly stupid things when the truth is staring them right in front of their face, but they believe in something that is preventing them from seeing it. Mickey.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like what I shouted out before. It's like, what if it's a fake out? What if Luke is really trying to get Grogu? Like, he wants Grogu to pick the personal attachment because that's what Luke did. But at the same time, he can't make it
That's
too easy.
interesting.
So
Yeah,
he's pushing,
that's
he's
really
actually
interesting.
pushing Grogu the other way to put pressure on
Yeah.
Grogu.
Do you want dogma?
So it's not
or-
as
That's a
easy a
fantastic.
decision.
That's
And
that seems
that
like
might be a
Luke.
reason that you don't see, like they set up like you don't see him pick because that's the suspense is what's Grogu going to pick. But what if the real suspense is what's Luke going to do? And like, what if it's like he picks a personal attachment and Luke's like, actually, you're right. And B also,
Actually,
I
you're
was
right.
very
Like, that's what I
disappointed.
did.
Yeah. I was very disappointed it was chainmail, not some sort of like Viking helmet with like horns or something like that. Very,
Like
yeah.
two horns on it.
Yeah.
It goes over his eyes.
So that's a fantastic. I mean, that's a fantastic point. Now
Yeah,
I'll be disappointed if
100%.
that's
That's a
not where
great
they go with
idea.
it.
Yeah.
And there's no way he's not going to choose Mando because
No.
I mean, come on.
Well,
So-
because yeah.
I think they're setting us up for like a Baby Yoda reveal in the season finale of Mando, right?
Well,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they want
Yeah.
us to. I mean, the idea is that we're like, which one will he choose? Why not both? Because basically, how the episode has to go, Luke's gonna potentially go to Tatooine, and the reason why he'd go is because he's bringing back Grogu. So, I mean, and for a whole melee style episode, so Grogu has to choose the Mandalorian, but also, I don't know. I think he's a little bit afraid of lightsabers, as reflected when Luke's training, and you see the reflections in his eyes, and the flashback of when he sees lightsabers reflected in his eyes. I think he's suffering from some trauma that he's not dealt with. Because how could he have? So maybe he's not really into lightsabers. I still think he should pick it because it'd be kind of cool if everyone just got a lightsaber. Not that Grogu had any time to learn with it, but they both go
I
back
don't think he
to
can hold it.
I was gonna say you can hold it. Yeah.
yeah, but I really do think that he's either choosing Mando or both, and there's no chance he's choosing straight Jedi course, because as the show goes, they have to reunite Mando with Grogu for the next season because that's where the money is. That's that's what the fans want to see. That's how you can market it. So there's no way. And also, people pointed out that in the sequel trilogy. It's noted that Ben Solo is Luke's first student, and so if Grogu is Luke's
Right.
first student, that basically rewrites history, and they're not going to retcon the sequel
And that's
trilogy
probably
unless
why
they
they
want to. A
doubled
lot of
down
people
on
want
that.
that, but yeah, it's not.
No, they doubled down a few times saying like you'll be my first student. So that's probably you're probably very right.
I mean, he's got that extra seat in the back of his ship, so there's no way.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Grogu's
Between
not
the
gonna pop up in
chainmail
that.
and that extra thing, it's like it's a
Yeah.
guarantee that he's picking the chainmail or not. Whatever decision is going to lead him back to Mando, because otherwise
Exactly.
you wouldn't have that stuff in the show at all. It's because it's worse than a mislead. It's just like treading water. Like not. I mean, that is the whole series of Boba Fett so far. But
I disagree on that point, but we won't get into it now. Murray, then James.
I think that Mickey's idea of it being like a false lead works because, like, to me, that is more in line with the Luke that I picture. As we all said, we have different views of him, but I picture from his self-awareness that he would know, like, not like in an arrogant way, I did it my way, but just like, no, I knew something in me was moving, that my attachments is where my strength came from. And so he was able to find this balance between light and dark that gave him more power than any one individually. And I think he would know that. So for him to kind of be like, do you want dogma or do you want, like true strength?
Well, but that's not even where the old expanded universe went. The whole idea this whole time has been he rebuilds the Jedi. Now we have found out more about what the Jedi actually are, and it turns out that they're not that great.
Mhm.
And I also think, again, it's situational. I don't know that he would know, oh, okay, the key to my success in life is to ignore all of my teachings and do things my way. I think it's like, well, this was my father, and I got through to my father, and he's the one who killed the Emperor, right? So I don't know that he knows that it's like, oh, the Jedi teachings are full of shit. I think he thinks that it was his father who did it, and he believed that his father had the good in him still, and that's what it is.
From a standpoint of my, like, a mental health standpoint, I totally get, like, Luke never, like, always, like, downplaying his accomplishments, like he saves, like, the galaxy, and he's just like, yeah, but I guess my dad really did it. I don't know, I didn't really do anything except for, like, say you could do it, Dad. Like, so I totally get that, but that's not the impression that I got. And just really, really quick on the similar vibe, I just want to say to James, like, with the super depressed Luke and everything like that, it's not going to be a tangent, but like in college and stuff, I studied like the biblical studies, and every like great prophet that did any sorts of like tremendous works, like from Moses to Noah to Jonah, that they all are like cripplingly depressed, like afterwards. Like, and you're just like, so you're like, you just did something like incredible, like you rained fire down, and like did all these works of miracles, and then you're like the next scene he's like in a cave wanting death because he's so depressed and sad. So it's like I kind of like, I don't know if that was any inspiration that they put into Luke, but like that's what I saw when I watched it. And then also I was just kind of like, oh no, I understand, like constantly being depressed, like no matter what. But
that's fascinating.
so-
No, that's very interesting. I want to come back to that. James, then Mickey,
Yeah, well, I don't.
then Russ.
I don't mind that, Murray, like that. I mean, I get it. I'm not like, I understand why for storytelling they did that with Luke, and it's just not the version I wanted to see. But that's like most of us with everything.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it was
not your brain.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's terrible storytelling. I'm just saying it's not the version of the character I would want to see. But I can definitely see logically how you could get to being that character, especially what that character's been through. And I just wanted to make a point. I guess what we're talking about with Luke's teaching. I guess. Maybe the way he's teaching, like, I'm hoping it's a ruse, like Mickey said. My other thought is like, well, maybe this is his first student, and he hasn't been taught how to teach. Like
Exactly.
a couple of years ago,
Exactly.
a couple of years ago, I got thrown into an academic setting of teaching, and I had never taught academically, and I went by the book because I had no idea what's going on.
That's very interesting.
That's
great.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Like he does. It's like now, if he's supposed to rebuild the Jedi, he goes and he finds the books. He finds out how you be a Jedi and like how you're supposed to teach them, and that's what he's doing.
Right,
and
he's
that's
going
his
off
mistake.
He's got holocrons and books, and I'm sure the holocrons didn't say like, well, you got to be inventive when you make a lesson plan. I'm sure he's like,
And he's attached to the books to the extent that even Yoda, right, in Last Jedi, is like, oh,
The sacred Jedi text.
Yeah, he was like, oh, they were great, right? They're real page turners.
To quickly interject, not to backpedal or anything like that, but I just as a general foundation of like, we have this discussion going on right now. I loved the whole thing with Luke and Grogu and Mando and everything like that. So I want to just let everyone know that I actually enjoyed what they did.
Oh my God,
But
you hate it so
kind of
much.
came into conflict with where it's like, oh, like as other people say about the other movies, I'm like, oh, this isn't what I thought Luke would be like. I thought he would be more self-aware. But that being said, it's like, but like The Last Jedi, I'm like, I believe it. I believe what they're showing me because it's not entirely off base, but it wasn't what I expected.
In terms of like nitpicking, I think that for me, like the thing that's maybe stopping me from getting the emotional connection that you guys are with Luke is like, I couldn't get over the line delivery. Like it really seemed like this was before I knew that it was like robotic. I literally thought that like maybe because of COVID or something like that, that Mark Hamill just phoned in, like literally like on like something like this. Like they just told him, say this line, because none of it had that like the rhythm that leads into another sentence. You know, like when you're talking, your words like go down before they come back up. But if you're just reading one sentence, you read it self-proclaimed. And so like when he's not having like a conversation, it's more like, you remind me of someone. My master Yoda, he was someone that taught me. And you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could say that being a Jedi Master makes you say everything like a Cohen or whatever. It's
that very much goes back to the last episodes where I talk about execution versus intention, and that's definitely an execution issue, 100%.
But James, continue.
I know. I guess the last thing I was going to say is, like, aside from like he's never taught anyone before, he could also be looking at it, and I don't know how much Obi-Wan's ghost or Yoda's ghost or Ahsoka told him, but he could be like, well, my dad had attachments and he killed everybody. So like
like a whole planet.
Good point. He could think of it like, yo, I got lucky.
Right. He could be looking, like look at the bloodline
like he's
that I
the
have.
exception, not the rule. Yeah.
Right. So
that's actually a very good
interesting
point. That's
I never thought about that.
Mickey, then Russ.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just want to say, I like the bad voice because I was picking up on these like vibes. If you ever watched like when like movies they showed you in the 90s, but they were from the 70s and like in like Class or like those like made for TV 70s movies when you had like whoever was the B or C listed, like Mark Hamill. And Mark Hamill wasn't that great actor in the first place, at least in the early the first episode,
I know,
it's a very to me it's a
voice
very
acting.
Yeah. But it's
That's
a very
specific
good
point. That's a very good point. Yeah, he knows.
Well, I know he became a good actor.
Yeah.
I think early on, and that's the thing is I don't think it's him. I think it's actually of 70s aesthetic or something. There's something like that style, that kind of dead end delivery to me. It's like that just threw me back to so many like 70s like made for TV movies or something of so many blonde kids with mop hair talking like that.
Yeah.
I think it very much was a limitation of the programming that they had.
Yeah, with the music, because I like that they brought back that kind of music that had the same kind of 70s vibe to it too, and so it was kind of just like just kind of chilling. Like if there was a whole episode like show that was that, and it's just like we're just going to chill and talk about philosophy on this planet in very dead end tones to like string music, I'd be like, all right, that's cool.
No, like my wife said something similar that like it does sound the way he did sound in Return of the Jedi when he's like, I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Exactly.
So it did sound like that, but I guess for me, it kind of worked in those small little doses. But when he's like, here's a whole like monologue that I'm going to read one line at a time into this like computer, I was like, fuck, like make it stop.
No, it's definitely weird.
One thing I was going to say, like I realized with like Russ was saying with like how Baby Yoda, I'm not going to do the Grogu thing. Baby Yoda, he's Baby Yoda.
Fair enough.
I don't go. Yeah. He's Baby Yoda. He should always be a puppet. They should do what Herzog say. Leave the puppet in, you cowards.
You coward.
Believe in the puppet.
But he's scared of the weapon, and then that made me remind me of the last episode when that Mandalorian leader said that armor is for protection and it's not a weapon. And so this is really going to be like Grogu's moment, not just to pick out a connection to Mando, but whether he's a Mandalorian or a Jedi, if he believes in an offensive. Although I think they would say like you use it to block a lightsaber is a parade. It's not exactly an offensive weapon, but armor, something productive or something that can be used to attack, I think is like might be a powerful statement for Baby Yoda to make. So maybe I am wrong, but then kind of to the point like James is making everything that maybe that's what Luke's going to realize. It's like, oh, I lost my way from Return of the Jedi. I got too deep into the books, and now and didn't they say something like Rosie O'Donnell is like, oh, the students like sometimes the student teaches the teacher. So maybe that will be what happens is that Grogu will teach Luke, that he should actually go back to like what got him through like Return of the Jedi and everything.
That's an interesting point.
One thing I want to mention was when Mando shows up on Unknown Planet. Don't know where that is. Some people have speculated that it's Endor. It doesn't really have
it's
like
not fucking Endor.
No.
Based on the foliage alone. But anyway, I kind of like this whole like waiting for Godot, waiting for Grogu situation. He's just it's like they're making him a bench just to sit on. He's sleeping on it. And there's these spider bots building little huts, which I mean, I guess could foreshadow to the sequel trilogy. We see that those huts aren't necessarily ancient Jedi huts, but they're built by spider bots. That I don't necessarily know, like, if we need to see it. It's visually interesting, but I don't really know what that's about. But one thing I want to mention was, I think one of the reasons why Ahsoka is there, and possibly because she's getting her own show, I believe, right? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they want to keep her present in the kind of the fan eye. I think one of the reasons she's also there is to do a lot of the talking, because they know they can't have robot Luke do a lot of the talking. That a lot of that conversation has to happen through another party in order for them to like achieve a better Luke effect, is to have him from a distance or minimal and reduce the total screen time that robot Luke has. So I think
something I did notice was that the shots of Luke, a lot of them were wide. Which I think went a long way, though I don't think it's because they were incapable of doing it really well up close.
The Tarkin effect.
It could be cost. It could be cost as well.
Exactly. I think it was cost and time.
Yeah.
And they also cut away when he says a lot of dialogue, so you don't actually see his mouth.
You're getting shoulder. They're doing all the filmmaking techniques when you have to sub in someone for an actor, or like
exactly.
Yeah.
So because there were a lot of close shots where he looked fucking fantastic. So I think the reason
that's why the money
it was insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of like what we were saying with the Jedi, like and their dogmatic ways and stuff like that, I did get the similar feeling with Ahsoka that you get with people that follow such like dogmatic things, because she did the total like, no, you could see him if you want, like, and you could do whatever you want. If you want to ruin his life, you could totally do it. Like, you know what, like laying on like this, like the weird, like religious, like dogmatic, like guilt. Like, no, everyone's free to do whatever they want. If you want to hurt him, go ahead, hurt him.
Yeah.
Like, ruin his training. Like,
that actually frustrated me, because I was like, she's being so manipulative towards
exactly.
Him right
She's
now.
not being
Jedi moms must be so tough to deal with.
Like, but
Though once again, and James can speak to this as well, the whole thing with Ahsoka was that she's not a Jedi anymore. So I think really what she was saying, and I think there's another way to look at it, like when you drop your child off at school, for example, or if you've broken up with someone and they're trying to get over you. I think what she was saying is you are going to make it hard for him because he misses you. So that's more how I read it. Though your reading, I totally get that. It's very culty, religious cult
it's
vibes.
like fake choice. Like, oh, you got
what got me through that. But also, I totally believed it too. I don't know that much about her character because I didn't watch the other shows. But also the fact that Grogu is a baby. So it's like, this is going to make things... If Grogu was, say, like 10 years old, like as a human, like he was like able to like speak and have an actual personality, Luke probably could show up for like a half hour, see him, and then leave. And then the kid
Mando.
probably...
Mando, yeah.
I'm sorry, Mando could... Sorry, thank you. Mando could show up, visit him for like a day, then leave, and the kid could probably take it. But since Grogu is a baby, that could derail him for a while, that Luke has to then overcome to get him back on track. But the way she went about it, I was like Murray said, it's like, this is kind of manipulative. Like you didn't really have a choice at that point when she put it down like that.
James, I need you to speak about the stranger in the desert, the bounty hunter that I know.
Cad Bane.
Yeah, Cad Bane.
Cad Bane. I have lots to say about this.
Okay, well,
go for it. Hell yeah.
I don't think any of the rest of us have seen him in Clone Wars, right?
Only like the 2 or 3 episodes myself. Like in the beginning, 2 seasons, whatever he's in.
And he's in Rebels. He's in Rebels as well.
I've only seen like maybe the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars.
I've seen like YouTube clips or whatever.
So I will say that knowing he existed, but not really knowing his deal, I thought his entrance and his whole shit and his whole scene was fucking really awesome, and he was
good,
very
bad,
scary and very bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it was
that 3-way shootout.
Yeah, very sad that we lost
Deputy
Justified over there, but
did we?
No, please.
No,
he got hit in the shoulder, man.
Yeah,
watch
him and
Michael all right,
patching him up
through and through.
Watch the playback, man. It went right into his shoulder.
Fennec got shot. I mean, that's true. Fennec got shot in the midsection, and she's fucking alive. So, yeah.
Also, those lasers quarterized. They quarterized.
There we go.
Good.
But James, I want to know your thoughts on Cad Bane's appearance in the show and your thoughts on where that might be headed and how they handled him. And what do you think about that?
Sure. I just want to say one thing before I get to Cad Bane, just because, like,
How dare you?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Son
But
of a bitch.
just to say, like, from going back to Ahsoka, since I've followed her for how many seasons, we did that, and then we did it in Rebels. Like, she's more of a Jedi technically than Luke because she had way more training and way more time.
Mhm.
And I will also say that she's sort of like playing, and I'm going to out of date reference, but Jon Stewart, like, I'm not a political guy, so you don't have to listen to me. Meanwhile, like she's so steeped in the mythology and knows the break of the path that she's being a little passive aggressive there. So that's all I'm going to say. Like, I don't know if that's her intention, but the tone and the
man.
But to go back to Cad Bane, he's a great character. My main thing with Cad Bane is, like, Dave Filoni is, like, playing this huge long game, which I've said before. In fact, bringing this character finally into the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, because now I think we're in the Mandalorian because I haven't seen. Like, I was like applauding. Oh, Boba Fett showed up in his own show this week. Good for him.
Zero lines.
Zero lines. But Cad Bane is, to go back to our conversation with last episode, he is the other version of Boba Fett we would have liked to have seen, or at least Russ would have liked to have seen. This is the ruthless money bounty hunter in Clone Wars and Rebels. He doesn't have allegiance to anyone except what the job is, what the money is, and if you get in his way, I'm killing you and taking what I need. And
on Shagor, baby.
Yeah, he is that guy.
Yeah.
And he is the other. This is like, now we're getting, like, Mandalorian is what we hope Boba Fett would be. Cad Bane is what Boba Fett could have been. And now we have, like, just Boba Fett has no identity because Cad Bane is just the Clint Eastwood badass bounty hunter Western guy throughout. True and true. He has no heart.
Love it.
No, but once again, I have to stand up for my man Boba over here. He does have a character. He does have a character. It's just not the one that he had in the 90s.
No, that's true. I'm just saying, with, like, I don't know where they're going with it. I think it's amazing that they brought this character in and really are tying in. Again, I know we said, like, is it fair that you have to watch seasons of Clone Wars and Rebels to get a full background of two of the characters in the show? No. But if you're watching them, this is a big, like, wow, they brought this guy in.
No, I mean, for me, who had not seen Cad Bane's episodes in the other series, like, his entrance was super effective for me. I got everything you just said from that one scene. So I think it was very successsill.
And they made him look so great. He looks like the 3-dimensional, like, animation they do, but his looks amazing. And he's always had that look. Like, he's been the cowboy since the beginning. So
so
very
good.
cool. Murray, then John.
Shit, what was I gonna say?
John and Murray.
Guys, repeat everything you said, and no. Oh no, it was where they tried to double down on. They know that they're not showing us the proper Boba Fett, or that's in our head, because even our Western dude, I forgot his name.
Cad.
That's what I said. He says, like, "Oh, be careful, Boba Fett's like a ruthless, bloodthirsty, whatever." And you're like, is he? Is he? I don't know. He like I have yet to see it.
That could be telling. That could be telling.
He used to be.
But did he say he used to be, or he said he is?
What I'm saying is, what he's saying is not untrue from a certain point of view. When he says he used to work for the Empire. He was a ruthless piece of shit. He's wielding his past. He's using it against.
Okay. I guess I
he's
took
also
it, like,
trying to
too
get
much.
the job done, so he will say anything to manipulate the population.
I guess I took it too much of, like, maybe, like, in a bad meta sense of them being like, guys, no, guys, like, just trust us. We're telling you Boba Fett's bad, but we're making him, like, appealing, but also he's just as bad as this guy, I tell you. Just mark our words.
But you also have to be aware, though, too, all of these episodes were written and shot before any fan reaction happened, right? So they're not reacting to any of our reactions, at least within a season of story.
It's almost like they knew, though, right?
I think as a viewer, we still remember Boba Fett from the original trilogy, which he did seem like a killer. So, like, I think Cad Bane's manipulating the population by trying to get them uneasy to make his job easier. That was a tricky sentence. And then also referring
best ones are, John. No.
Exactly. Also referring to the way that we remember him. But to what I really wanted to say was that I don't know anything about this character besides being aware of him. I knew what he looked like. So as soon as I saw his silhouette, I knew who it was. And I went, oh, really? And then when he showed up, I thought it was tip top A+ perfect. And this is the first time in all of Star Wars, with every single thing that I've seen, where I actually thought the bad guy was legitimately scary.
Yeah.
Like even when Darth Maul shows up and the door's open, he has to
Yeah.
fight Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good fight. But
Yeah.
when he shows up in the town, I'm like, they're going to lose. Like I knew
Yeah.
no matter what was gonna happen, I was like, Cad Bane is gonna win. Like I knew he was like Anton Chigurh and No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
Good reference, Murray. I was like, there's no way this is gonna go well. And when he lifted up his hat and you saw his eyes and his teeth, I was like,
Yeah.
this is a scary motherfucker.
Yeah,
like if I was
this
a
is-
little kid, I actually might like put the blanket over my head. You know, obviously,
Yeah, he was-
I wasn't. Maybe a little, but like just watching it, I was like, this is the first time I think they've ever actually had a guy that was beyond intimidating and went into scary level of bad guy, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah. And the town like kind of knows, like Timothy Olyphant's character, like he like knows basically the outcome before it happens, right?
Yeah,
Not
he
even like
knew
even
what was
before he
gonna
gets
happen.
there, he's like clear the streets. Like basically, like I think that kind of like sold it too. Is like when you see the characters not have any bravado, but they're all just like, well, I'm gonna try to get us like the least amount of fucked that we can be because like this is the storm that the gathering storm's coming right my way type.
And what I was talking about this the other day with my other friends, and I love
What other friends, John?
I know you don't have any other friends.
Well, this pillow and this pillow
and the blanket he used to cover himself when
exactly.
What, don't you see them? They're sitting right in here.
Yeah. Bobby Frick. No. So
I want to see the book of Babu Frick. I would watch the shit.
Yes. I think one of my favorite moments of the entire scene is he knows the deputy's going to die. And when they have these intense close-ups right before they pull their guns, and the look on Timothy Olyphant's face, he's trying to look at the deputy and warn him, but he can't take his eyes off of Cad because he knows the moment he does, he's dead. And so there's this literal struggle where you see in his face, he's kind of like quickly kind of going back and forth between the two of them, and he looks like he's grimacing and he's like trying to say like, you motherfucker, just go inside. And then he knows the moment's going to happen any second, and it does. And I thought that was just beautiful execution and the incredible choice of camera work and
directed
acting.
by Dave Filoni, man.
Exactly, and actors reacting to the situation. I was
but
like, this is just a perfect.
It's not quite shot for shot, but it is Good, Bad, and the Ugly, right? With the three-way
a little bit
showdown.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's because a clear preference.
Mickey, and then James, if you have time, I would love for you to give your final verdict on the episode or any closing thoughts.
First best title of all the series, including the Mandalorian and everything.
The Mandalorian.
It's kind of interesting because if you don't know, I don't think they ever mentioned that character's name. So he's just, to me, he was the stranger, and absolutely terrifying. And I want to say he's not Clint Eastwood. He is Lee Van Cleef, right?
That's
totally.
For sure.
Same hat and everything.
Yeah.
No,
very good call, Mickey.
Yeah.
So
James, before we lose you, I want to get your closing thoughts or final verdict on the episode.
I mean, this is the best episode of Star Wars, and I thought that was last week. So, I don't like. I guess I was thinking I guess they are literally going for maybe the Book of Boba Fett, except the Book of Boba Fett's written by Stephen King or John Steinbeck because they have chapters that mean nothing to the main story in it or something. Like
John Steinbeck rules.
I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying sometimes I just remember reading Grapes of Wrath and we had a metaphorical chapter about a turtle. So I guess that always scarred me from.
That's like my favorite book of all time. You son of a bitch.
I apologize to any John Steinbeck fans that might be watching this, and I apologize for the slight on John Steinbeck.
No, I'm the only one left standing.
Yeah. I just was saying, it seems like I guess maybe it's a literal book that these are chapters that are going to tie into the main book, next week, hopefully. I'm assuming, and I'm looking forward to it. It seems like they had this idea for Boba Fett, and then they're going with an anthology series almost now, and I'm hoping it'll tie back in at the end. But I'm in for the ride definitely. If not for Boba Fett, then everybody else that they've shown me at this point. and I'm guessing. I don't know what to guess at this point. I was surprised. I was really surprised we saw Luke and Grogu in the Book of Boba Fett. I thought we were gonna have to wait until Mandalorian season 3 for that. So
was I. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd see Luke again at all. Actually.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure we were going to. Maybe because I knew that they had hired that guy, and I was like, they want to be able to do as much of this
Oh,
as they
true.
want. But
Yeah.
about the book of Boba Fett, the title, there was a tweet that I read from that Alden Diaz that really summed it up. He says, "It has never been more clear why this show is called The Book of Boba Fett. Honestly, 100% unironically, the choice to add the book of makes so much more sense when you consider how we were introduced to the show even being a thing, and the inspirational sources like the Bible, like the books in the Bible. It means you're changing perspectives or framing devices / narratives, but it is still the story, whatever that may be." I'm being super vague here, of course. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think this TV meets novel approach is the goal. And somebody went on to say, the Rev Ty replied, who I assume is a reverend. He says, "Given the Bible is something I know a thing or two about, this rings of such truth. They set out to tell the tale of a new era of Mandalorians and Jedi, and these are the stories within it. Like how the prophet Isaiah is found in the book 2 Kings, but also has his own book." I thought that was very interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
There we go.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
That actually kind of makes me feel like, well, I was going to say two things. And the one thing was related to that, but now I actually think my idea is bad, because I was thinking like, it'd be great if they have all these characters and bring in that they got to bring back the Wheel show, where just every episode's actually just a different, like there's 8 characters. There's Boba Fett's one week, then the next week you could check in and it's Mando, and the next week you check in and it's the Marshal type of thing. And it's like, that's just like a format of TV that there used to be that I miss, that I think would be great you could do. But that then kind of goes against like that great idea, what I like that person was saying, of these like each season being a chapter of a book of this kind of religion thing, which is kind of cool.
No, well, that's kind of what's happening, though, because I actually thought about you whenever someone made a variation of the joke, the best episode of Boba Fett, and Boba Fett's not even in it. What I kept thinking is like this whole thing, you said a few weeks ago how TV can be anything, and you were disappointed that they were sticking with the TV format. But I actually think they are kind of doing something with TV that is not what we're used to. We're watching this story, this season of story, as if it's like its own self-contained arc, or that it's like somehow separated. But what we're really watching is kind of what you're talking about. It's not the Wheel show, it's the Wheel universe of shows, right? So like,
Right.
So one season you get, we're going to focus mainly on what's going on with Boba Fett. And I don't know how the other shows are going to handle all of the interconnectivity, but that's what that made me think of, was that like, we're now seeing a TV show that is not really operating the way TV shows operate. It's kind of operating the way a TV show within an interconnected universe of TV shows operates.
Yeah, totally.
Something going totally off the structure of the show. Last week, one of the things I had thought of when I was watching the episode and didn't mention, and it kind of comes into play here a little bit, is when Mando's getting his new ship. It's the Naboo starfighter, and I thought like that's too small to keep a bounty. Like you can't, like, unless you put them in the dome section, like there's got to be enough storage stow capacity for a pilot to have like an emergency kit, have rations, that kind of thing. So there's always that. Like even like when Luke lands on Dagobah, he's got a whole bunch of containers and stuff. Like there's space and ships, so that's not really a concern as far as where he puts his gear. But he really can't put another person necessarily unless they fit in the astromech dome, which is rather
Strap
small.
into the roof. Strap into the roof.
So and like
Hold your breath.
so a few it brought up a few things
Or
structurally.
encase them in
where-
carbonite.
So Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones had that craft with the separate starlight,
The hyperspace ring.
the hyperspace ring. So A, that could be a thing. B, it's very telling of the direction of the show as a whole. Basically, they don't intend for Mando to have any bounties going forward. That's not the direction that his character's going. He's going back to Mandalore. He has to purify himself and get the helmet. So when he's traveling this episode, like, and he's traveling super fast and he's going to the planet and just the starfighter, that's it. That's the new character for Mando that we see. And so that really intentional. Like I thought, like, oh, there's a problem. You can't be a bounty hunter anymore. A lot of other people had these concerns. Well, it was a decision, for a reason. So I accept that and kind of the direction of the show. And so I'm curious to see. He's not going to be really a bounty hunter in season 3 of Mandalorian. That's not a thing. So this kind of is showing us what they're thinking, where they're going. So if like he can't be a bounty hunter, he's not supposed to be. That being said, like structure, getting back to the structure of the show, and Boba Fett not being in it. Yeah. I think they they missed the mark a little bit. It should have been, they wanted a reason to bring characters together. They wanted a melee episode. It's all coming together for this one episode. They wanted to have a melee. They wanted to have original trilogy characters. Luke, potentially Han Solo is going to show up. You might even have a Leia in a cockpit. Like, who knows what we're going to see? It's going to be an all-out like brawl in this next episode where at some point Han's like, Boba Fett, we're working with Boba Fett. Like something like that might happen. I think definitely some reference to like, didn't Boba Fett try to kill you, Luke? Didn't he bring me to Jabba? So there's going to be I think there's going to be some of that like reckoning with original trilogy Boba Fett. And he's like, no, he's different now. Boba's a different person. But then my real hope is at the very end of this melee, he screws everyone over and gives me exactly what I want and makes it all like a big ruse the whole time. I just
don't understand. Like we have all these other characters that are shades of the old Boba Fett. Like, why are you so married to the depiction of this character that specific way? I just don't get it.
I want him to put his helmet on and never take it off again at the end of the melee episode. I don't have a lot of requests, but that's what I want. I want him to say like, that was not Boba Fett, I am Boba Fett, and just go total ape shit. Like
he was never like that even in the original trilogy. He never seemed
no,
like
but he was in the EU,
dude.
is Russ's point, and Russ is a big fan of the EU stuff.
EU forever.
EU forever.
We can almost predict the whole like a lot of what's about to happen in the next episode with like joining forces and who's coming in. Like I imagine Luke Skywalker's going down to Tatooine with Grogu. It's going to be wild.
I mean,
that would be cool for him to go back home.
Yeah.
No, well, if he's going to
there's a lot of reasons why it's that's one of them.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and he could see Fixer and Cammy, even though that scene was deleted, and I guess it's
that would be
canon.
cool.
But that would be fucking cool because in the Last Jedi novelization, I'm going way off topic. In the Last Jedi novelization, it starts out where he has a vision of how his life would have gone had he never left. And he imagines.
Oh, that's better than
Cammy,
the movie.
And he imagines. Fuck you, man. The Last Jedi is awesome. And he has a vision. He's dreaming. He would be a moisture farmer. He and Cammy, and he would be living a quiet life and like, blah, blah, blah. He muses, I wonder what they're up to, or like blah, blah, blah. So I know that scene wasn't in Star Wars, though it was in the novelization and the comics. So I mean, it's still, and now the two characters are canonized on screen. So that would actually be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool if that was the whole reason why they had that cameo, was to set up Luke seeing them again.
Coming together.
That could be cool. This episode was really, really cool. And my wife even said too that like it just felt like Star Wars. Like it felt like a universe. It felt like not just tied down to one place. But I do find like, whereas they threaded the needle kind of like good in this, but if all of a sudden you're seeing every character you've ever seen in Star Wars coming up, it's just a little too winky at the camera, and that it would like drive me nuts. So I'm actually hoping that like, I mean, Luke's already established, so if he goes back to Tatooine, that's fine. But if you're bringing all these other people, I'm just gonna be like, all right, fucking stop. Like, well, we don't need. It's a whole.
I think it's execution dependent, but yeah,
probably. You're
well,
very right.
I mean, the Marvel movies was execution dependent too.
But that's the thing is like it falls flat very often in Marvel movies, especially now. You're just like, okay, all right, okay. And so I don't want that to be the same thing. I know that's where all like the money is now and the nostalgia grabs and like Avengers Assemble type thing of every property, but still it just
that's an interesting parallel that actually never even occurred to me because I don't watch the Marvel stuff. But yeah, that actually lends credence to what Russ was saying, because that's
they want the team. Yeah, they want the team build up. Like, look at all these disparate people coming together, join forces to accomplish this one goal.
So I do have to tell you, I wouldn't mind if Han Solo shows up, because the new Boba Fett has to reckon with the person he was, and the best way to do that is to have Han Solo confront him, because the reason we think he's a bad guy is because he took down one of our heroes, right? So
he was just doing his job.
Like, I feel like, and this is a Marvel poll, but like, I feel like Han Solo would be like, "Oh, you son of a bitch, you encased me in carbonite," and I feel like Boba Fett would be like, "I don't even know who you are, man. Like, I don't. You're just like a job. Like, I mean,
like, that can still happen. What I'm just saying is, for the purposes of the audience, it makes sense. Those characters have a connection that has something to do with Boba Fett's character arc, with his transformation. John, then Mickey, or Mickey, then John.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember who. Okay,
John.
There was like so much that happened. I actually had to get a notepad and write down.
Yeah. No,
So to answer really quickly, what you guys to go backwards to a couple of points, what you guys are talking about with the whole shared universe character thing. They only have one episode left, so I feel like it would be suicide for them to try and cram in Han Solo and Chewbacca and Princess Leia and Lando.
So.
They can't do it.
That's the only thing I'll say to that, though, is that's kind of what happened with the finale of Mando. They brought in Luke Skywalker. We never thought they would do that.
But they brought in one character, as Murray just said. They can't.
All I'm saying,
they're amping up.
They can't do all of them. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Luke shows up. I wouldn't be surprised if Luke shows up because it's established. And I think if they go a step further, it'll be Kira saying that she's Crimson Dawn and she's in charge of everything or something like that.
Possibly. The only thing I'll say to that, though, is that so far the Book of Boba Fett hasn't pulled a move that's its own move. It's only brought things from Mandalorian. So we saw Luke again. We saw Mando again. We saw Grogu again.
Well, they brought in Cad Bane, and they brought in the character from the comic book, Nubaka and stuff.
No, but I mean like an OT thing.
I mean, like, I don't know.
So I wouldn't be shocked.
It's a moot point. I mean, at the same time, if they do it, fine. But I kind of hope they don't. But at least I think that would happen. I think that might happen like seasons down. I think that might be
it is weird.
I think that might be like season 5 of The Mandalorian or something like that. But anyways, before I go off,
I don't think they're waiting that long. I think it might happen next week.
But I had two other points. I had 2 other points that I wanted to bring up before I. One was content and one was execution. Content-wise, since we're talking about content, I mentioned this to you, Josh, after we had our podcast, and I mentioned this to the other guys when we were still talking after we had our last podcast, but since it hasn't been aired, I'll just say it. I do think that they are purposefully showing Boba Fett having a lot of flashbacks to his father's death to establish that he has a beef with the Jedi. And on top of that, he's still very traumatized by it. And given the connection between Mando and Grogu, given there's a whole Darksaber thing, given that there's conflict between all these characters, I do think there's going to come to a point where Mando is going to have his life be in danger in front of Grogu or something like that. And Boba Fett either will be the person responsible for it or will be witnessing it. And I think he's going to have a flashback to his own father's death. Because he's also, as Russ pointed out to when we talked about it, he has almost the same exact armor as Jango Fett. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that this is probably going to happen, and Boba Fett's going to stop it. And whatever that's going to be, it's going to be awesome. But execution-wise, the whole thing about the series is strange because somebody said this on another website, maybe it was IO9 or something like that, and they were like, I wonder if they just should have called the show The Adventures in Star Wars or something like that, because it's like it's kind of going all over the place. And he's like, and if they just called it something that wasn't Boba Fett centric, they would have been okay with the way they're doing the story. But since they're like, this is the Boba Fett show, and for 2 episodes in a row, they don't give us Boba Fett, it's like, what are they doing? And it makes me wonder, from a filmmaking perspective, who do you think, like, I wonder how someone can just take this entire season and edit it down to be more concise. Well, I wonder if they're going to be like if I thought about this, like, could this whole season just be a 2-hour movie?
Or, you know,
I think like, does it really need to be like this long? I wonder.
A standalone episode in like Mando season 4. Like this whole season could be boiled down to one Boba Fett episode, like how there was the Mando episode.
And Josh, I think you're a fantastic editor and writer yourself, and I wonder if that would be like something that you even think could be conceivably done in a good way. I'm not saying that the show is bad. I love the show. Look how devoted we are to it.
God, John but it's just the show so bad.
Oh, I'm fucking seething with rage. But no, I'm thoroughly enjoying the show. But it's just like it makes me wonder, like, could this whole show just be a 2-hour movie?
Should have been.
Because I've seen movies with way more content that are very concise. Like, Train Spotting's a tight 90-minute movie with a lot of fucking content, and it's just like, I wonder if Boba Fett can do the same thing with all their content.
Boba Fett should not have gotten his own show. I think it was a mistake, and I think
but that's kind of what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm saying is that it's kind of not his own show. It's kind of like the Wheel series, to go off of what Mickey said before, the idea of a Wheel show where it's a rotating cast of main characters and someone
I feel
takes
like
a spotlight.
Clone Wars was like that a bit.
It would have worked if it were any other name, any other character. It would have been better.
Or just don't call it a person's name show. Call it
of the show that everyone wanted.
Just call it like Star Wars something else.
Book of the Galaxies or something.
No, but like we were talking about, it's
like
the Book of Boba Fett. It's the Book of Boba Fett.
Going back to
It's
the biblical thing.
But it's his book.
Tag me in. I'm fucking ready.
Mary's pumping.
Well, no, it is his book.
I'm
We don't
ready.
know. We don't know from here. It seems like, to me,
I wanted
like
the Bounty Hunter's Journal book, I guess, or like Boba Fett's Bounty Journal.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
like,
that's what we thought it was. Yeah,
like his book of collections or some shit.
That's what I thought it was going to be. Like Punisher War Journal, Boba Fett's Bounty Journal, something of similar that way. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, that's it. I mean,
It's
I hear that.
I can't get my helmet off.
Also because that's how it's like you see him taking over in a very like gangster way at the end of Mando. So and then it's the Book of Boba Fett, so that's what you think. But yeah.
And he kills Bib Fortuna in cold blood when he does it.
His journal's like, one day the rain will come and wash the trash off of Tatooine. And then,
and I'll say
like,
no.
He's just doing pull-ups and holding his hands over like over a lit lightsaber.
Oh my
That's
god!
amazing.
He's talking into a mirror.
Yes.
You're talking to me.
The only thing I will say is that we don't know what the end game is, and we don't know how this fits into the larger what non-obnoxious word can I say? Tapestry schema.
Oeuvre?
I don't oeuvre. Like, we don't know where this fits yet. And I am content to just kind of see how it unfolds and let it do whatever it's going to do before I judge, whether or not it should have been called something else. I get the impression a lot of people are not of that same mindset, so it's
I judged the whole time and then reassess my judgment.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean you guys. I meant
well, that's what I meant by like
Star Wars
just
Twitter.
thinking about it now that
Star Wars
we have
YouTube.
one episode. We have one episode left, and we're theorizing about this crazy finale that like usually is a culmination of like 16 movies, and it's just like I'm thinking about it like what is the shape of this show? Why did they call? I'm always thinking about intentions. Why did they call it this? Why did they format it like this? And like second to last episode end, I'm still wondering like why did they do anything? And then
there were missteps.
And it's not necessarily in the way that I think it's a bad move, but it's like I can't believe that I'm about to finish a season of a show and still like not have a basis foundation as to like why anything is occurring.
Like, what's the story? Like,
like the execution of it. Like, why is it being said in this way, and why these priorities?
Is it possible?
I mean, am I crazy? Like, I think it's pretty clear. I think it's just it's showing the transformation of Boba Fett's character, and I think it's depicting how he's about
exactly from what to what. That's always my
they
from being a bounty hunter,
because Murray's been all about. They should have shown that process, and we only have hearsay. So like, oh, he's the worst ever, and we're only like in the past he was the worst, but we've only seen him as good as a victim of the Sarlacc. He's been a victim this whole time, and he's had a real rough go of it, and he's just trying to get back on top. So we've never seen him in his prime, and they should have done a flashback with someone in the Boba Fett suit, showing him in the past, really to build up the character, be like, oh, he was real bad. That's a real bad dude. But he did it for the money. It was his job. It wasn't personal.
I guess what I'm saying
I'm
is
an apologist.
Well, no, I feel like I'm in the position of being an apologist.
I'm a Fett apologist for what he's done, like his crimes. It was just a job.
He's an empire denier. All the red didn't happen is what he's trying to say.
Couple things to say. First of all, I like John being in the movie mindset. I think that's something I want to say. Like, we've been talking about this in TV show and everything for a while. And something I've been wanting to say is movies are back and they're awesome now. I think 2021 is going to go down as low key one of the best movie years. in a while. And
What
I
movies
think,
are you watching?
I think Malignant,
The
which
Green
was a
Knight?
dumb
I need to
movie
see
last
that.
year,
I
was
need to
still
see that.
better than 99% of the things trying to be serious on TV last year. I think A24 laid down a nice groundwork for the last 8 years and just created like this awesome movie scape of just fun stuff, dumb stuff, crazy stuff. That's just like, to me now that TV's kind of become turgid, and like now movies are back to being fun. And
Tell us how you really feel.
When Mick's done, I have a rant that's going to go right off of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, I would say to John's point though, not 2 hours. I actually, even though movies are getting too long, I actually think if this is going to be a spaghetti western, it's got to be 3 hours. And then when you put it on TV, it's going to be like 4.5 hours on TV with commercials, and you'll watch it on Saturday morning.
The
That's
proper
awesome.
intermission.
Love
Which-
it.
Yeah, which
It
leads to the
depends on
point is
what,
like that's
it
why
depends on what spaghetti western. Some of them are like 72 minutes.
that's true. Yeah. But also that means I think we're leading up to an
How
awesome
deep's
shootout.
that spaghetti bowl?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like
that's 100%.
if this is spaghetti
With a
western, the next
Rancor or
episode
something.
should be awesome. It should be like
the
an
Joe Kid
awesome,
Rancor, yeah.
Wild
Yeah.
Bunch, type of like
Yeah. For sure.
shootout. I
That's
hope
clearly what they're doing.
I would say I predicted, and I was scared I was going to be wrong about the what do you call it, the Rogue One, because I'm like, that was clearly riffing on like those 60s World War II movies like Guns and Navarone and stuff like that. And I'm like, if they were really going to like stick with that format,
And
they were
the
going to
Dirty
kill
Dozen.
everyone. I'm like, and there was like no way Disney's going to kill every character, and then they did. I'm like, that's awesome, because they were totally riffing on on like the Dirty Dozen, on Guns and Navarone, and that's what those movies did, and that's why that movie was awesome, because it stuck to its guns with that. So I'm kind of hoping we get a lot of death. Maybe I think Marshall Givens lives next episode, but I think maybe he's mortally
Well, it's because
you know
him
what I
and
mean?
Mando.
He's going to sit
together
in a
on
room,
Tatooine.
mortally wounded, just gunning down guys as they're coming into him, Alamo style or something like type of
Okay.
thing.
Awesome.
So I got
Also,
my fingers crossed
to,
for an awesome spaghetti western for that. But
Hell yeah.
I
But,
think this is a perfect opportunity to jump in and give some Kathleen Kennedy defense here, because a lot of people scapegoat her for all this. They forget that she's been around since day one. She's done all the Indiana Jones movies and all that stuff. But like, what I was going to say is, I think when they were making Rogue One, she was the one that said it first, when she was like, "Oh, they all have to die, right?" Like,
Yes.
And then like, yeah. So like, what I'm trying to say is, people give her a lot of shit and they shouldn't.
I agree 100%. I think I think that anyone who says anything about Kathleen Kennedy on Twitter should
is worse than polio.
Yeah,
They
Also,
don't question why they're saying those things.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I've been, even if I really want to say this because it's a joke, but I'm serious. I'm actually now on the pro Boba Fett becoming good mindset, based on one thing Josh said earlier when he was saying that other bounty hunter was saying he used to be a piece of shit. And then I realized I don't want to be the baby from I Think You Should Leave. I want to believe that Boba Fett can change. And so, you know what? And I'm serious. I am now, based on that, come around to I believe Boba Fett can change and that he can be a good person.
But do we need that?
He's no longer sitting in cantinas eating his like sloppy steaks,
Yeah.
No.
Well, Russ, I mean, do we need that? The whole thing is, I want to say this in a very polite way. I don't mean this in
Don't even do it. Just go. Rip it.
Yeah, I think all of your problems with this have to do with how wedded you are to the 90s expanded universe depiction of the character.
Yeah.
What was
For
that?
those
That
who
was his
can't
wedding
see,
ring
he put it.
going
He
on.
mind putting a ring around his finger.
Right, yeah, but I still don't understand what that means. Am I just
Because he's married to it.
He's
Yeah,
married.
you said
to,
wedding.
he's married to the
oh,
EU. He will never give up on the EU, even though they
But-
left him for some other dude in Vegas. He will never.
Can
give
I
up.
ask you?
I've been doing a
can
lot
I
of
ask-
mime work on my own at home.
Can I? No, I'm sorry. It's just me slow on the uptake. I don't have a brain. I have a leaky bag of urine in my skull.
That might be accurate.
Yeah, no, I think it is accurate. Like, I don't. Do you think that's true? And if so, that's fine. That's fine.
This has been the question for me that you've asked a few times. No, it's not, and it's not that, because I got to be honest. I've only my Boba Fett opinions mostly come from the Dark Empire comics, like above all else, and also he had his own
Yeah.
Boba Fett series.
Right? Yeah, the 90s EU.
Not so much.
90s
Yeah,
universe.
well, not so much the novelizations as much. More the comics, but basically, I don't like, you took the Boba persona and applied him to other characters. That's fine. You should not have brought back Boba Fett. I made a bet that I lost with a coworker that they would never bring him back in a million years, because why would they at this point? And I lost that bet. And I had previously said that was because of Disney got greedy. Because they, that's another potential cash cow, because they're playing on fan nostalgia, but they disappointed a lot of fans. And again, there was no real history written for Boba Fett of who he should be, because it's only had a few lines in a movie and everything else has been canceled. So they get to remake him however they wanted. What they did not do is really show us who he is before they wanted to change him, which is Murray's point. And I totally agree with that. They made him a character, where he's changing who he is. He's having a change of personal conviction about good, bad, what is evil, helping people. All that's fine, but it doesn't fit for me what I thought the character should be. Not even thinking about what they've already done in books and comics. Just like, we know him as a bounty hunter.
We do know who he was. He's the guy that broke up the trio and stole Han Solo away from Leia, and he was a bad dude.
He's a bad dude because he directly worked against the characters that we're following in the film. Yeah.
No, and also he worked for Jabba the Hutt, and like he was a bad
Work
dude.
with bad people.
He's just working. He's just making us.
He's misunderstood, guys.
Yeah,
And apparently he was in some Clone Wars where we see him becoming a bounty hunter and deciding to do all that stuff. So my thing is that, first of all, I think what we have seen of him in the quote unquote canon Star Wars, the OT and whatever was in Clone Wars, I think that's enough. But on top of that, I think they were also relying on the folk memory of who we all think he is.
Yeah, they
and
do
that
that with
and that can't be discounted.
Timothy Elephant too.
It can't be discounted, and it has been.
No, but I don't think it has. I think that they're using it to show a transformation. Like, that's why.
Yeah, but it's transformation from our memory, of our opinion or memory, to something that they want to make him to now. They never, if they had shown him on screen being the Boba Fett that we loved, those probably would have been my favorite parts. But they didn't show us that. They didn't flash back. They didn't build like he was bad. They're only saying he was bad. And based on what our collective memories are,
but we've also seen that he was bad in the original. Sorry,
and the one episode of Mando, he's ruthless when he fights. That was something that was most jarring for me. Not like, of course, the preconceived notions that we have from the few lines in Empire and stuff like that. But you see him when he makes his appearance in that episode of Mando. He's gnarly. He's like. So like you're just like, oh fuck, like this guy's nuts, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he's like he's like a sheep type thing, but like it's sheep. I meant gentle, not like following the wrong ideologies, but all of that also happens post Sarlacc pit, so that's why I am struggling so much with this, because they showed us. That's what he's like. So unless they do the bait and switch and that's who he is, or if that's how he is when he engages in, like kind of like Anton Chigurh, like he's such a man of principle that if he's fighting, there is no like rules. They're like his principles are, nope, this is the rules of engagement. Like
there wasn't an inciting incident, is what you're saying. There wasn't an inciting incident in your mind that changed him, and we never got to see it.
Yeah, and I guess I have to rewatch that episode because my impression was that like he's just at the mercy of these people who rescued him. He needs them. He can't be in a position to like.
He's a prisoner essentially there.
Yeah. So and also like when he comes out of the Sarlacc, he's at zero. He was left for dead. He was going to die, and like they're dragging him through the desert. He doesn't murder a kid because he would never do that because he was a kid.
Yeah.
That. So, so I just feel like when we meet him, he's at zero. And we don't need to see him.
We don't need to.
I think what Murray's trying to say is that he went from that baseline to the same baseline, kind of like he hasn't had like a real. He gets to know the Tuskens more maybe, but he as a person hasn't quite changed that much from beginning to end compared to other people.
Being tired and covered in
movies.
Like besides being tired and covered in ass and stuff like that, when he gets out of the,
I thought you said ass instead of acid.
Well, that too. You don't know what's going on in with his mods, but when he gets out of the Sarlacc pit, like that, he has not changed. Like we don't see that he was gruff and that changed him or anything. So what he sees, I don't think matches up with what we saw him in Mando, but Mando takes place after he gets out of the Sarlacc pit because he has his armor.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
like,
but that's
all that
also
stuff.
after the Tuscans were massacred. He's fucking pissed.
But that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like, so what's happening? Like, everything that like, for lack of a better phrase, present day thing we see of him in this is post
That.
the Tuscans being. Then he's like, "Hey, I just want to, if you want to put some coins in my helmet, I just want to say hi and let you know I'm the new guy in the neighborhood, and Bit Fortuna, he's out of here, and I'm the dude. So just give me a call if you need." And like, so that's all post Tuscan Raiders also.
What I think, what I think we're getting caught up on here is, you're talking about the way that he does the fighting compared to the way he is as a person. Now, as we were just talking recently about a movie like Nobody, or if you think about Mad Max, or you think about what's that UFC movie with Tom Hardy and Joe
Warriors.
There you go. Stuff like that. You think about like the crazy guy and you think about like we know some people in our lives too who are like on the person to person. They're your man. They have the utmost respect. They'll politely talk to your parents, but then like all of a sudden they realize that they're in a fight and they're the guys that will rip your eyeball out. And I feel like Boba Fett could be one of those guys where he's like on the day to day, he's like, hey man, I have no problem with you, whatever, blah blah blah. But then if the push comes to shove, he'll put the bottle in your neck. And I feel like it's not exactly contradictory to show him being like honorable and respectful and polite, and also being like a cold-blooded brawler when he needs to, because he just flicks a switch and he's like, I'm in fighting mode now, like a Green Beret, and he's like, now I'm going to fucking fuck you up,
Rambo, what's up? No, but like,
there you go.
So, but it kind of makes sense, right? Because we love Mando and he's like got that paternal thing and he's got a range of emotion, but then he also just kills somebody in the last episode or 2 episodes ago just because it was too much of a hassle to take him in alive, and he's like, fuck it, I just need your head, I don't care.
Chopped him in half.
Yep. And so maybe it is something along those lines of, it's just like, no, what, like, again, back to the Shagor, it's like, no, like, when I'm focused, like, whatever this coin flip is, I'm adhering to it. Like, that's my principle. So if it is just, no, part of the job, I don't care how the job gets done, it's getting done.
And that could be the Mandalorian way when you think about like the fighting over the Darksaber, like maybe like the big guy was going to kill Mando. Like he even says some sort of line. He's like, this is where your path ends. And he looks like he's about to kill him, and then Mando takes out the knife and he fucks him up. Yeah. And then and I think one of the reasons why Bo-Katan just doesn't accept the Darksaber when he's like, fuck it, I yield, I don't care. Because she's like, no, we gotta fight to the death over it, like, and I feel like that could just be like the way they're trained in their culture. So I could see why that is the way. And I could see why Mando and Boba would fight in the very similar way, where it's like, no, we don't want to fight, because if we fight, I'm going to have to either kill you or put you in a hospital. I can't just like push you away, type of thing.
But another thing that brings to mind is just to get back to the question at hand of like why I don't like this Boba Fett character, or why I think it's not right. One of the things is like, I'm going to take over Jabba's holdings. It's like, why?
He said it in that.
Because he's tired of working. Is that
he's tired of working for idiots?
All right, all right, Boba. That's cool, I guess. Like, but I don't care. I'm not invested in Boba's interest, and that's my problem. I don't care if I don't care if he gets Jabba's holdings or if he wins. I really think there's got to be something else there for me to be curious. I don't think it's interesting enough. That's me. That's my opinion. I think the show is 100% fair. And the show is good in pieces. There are things about it that I like. I have a problem that he's not wearing a jumpsuit under his armor, and I won't get over it because I don't think it looks right. The shoulder pads are underneath the flap of the shoulder of the shirt, and it's wrong.
I think it's awesome.
All right, that's fine. But like, I don't think it looks right. And I think for me, I'm not invested in the character. He should have been a side character that shows up like he does in Mando. Should not have got his own show. I do think it was a misstep, and Disney has made missteps with their Star Wars projects. It's happened, and I accept it. Like, it will change and evolve. The Luke stuff was, better than last time we saw him, so that was an improvement. Like, there are things that I don't mind that are happening, but it's like I look at Crystal Skull. Like, I'm not going to watch it anymore, and like I'm not going to go back to some of the Star Wars stuff because I don't feel like it's as good as it could be. Is it the best we're going to get? Sure, absolutely. It's like, who would have done it better? Who would have sunk as much money? So a lot of my problems are just Russ' opinions, you know. Like,
No, I mean, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Look, I want to make it clear. Like, I'm not trying to pick on you. I hope it doesn't seem that way. It's just that,
he's
like,
always picking on me.
No, my
It's
no,
fine.
but you represent a viewpoint that I'm really curious about, and I feel like I can have a discussion with you to understand it a little more versus certain people on, let's say, Twitter that I don't want to get into it because
you can't with that.
yeah. So
Russ, you just inspired me
Yes.
with another thought about
Yes.
storytelling, because for some reason you made me think of, because you're still hoping for him to like break bad and
Yes.
all these things. And
A lot of yes.
you know, I was thinking about, when I was watching the episode, I was actually consciously thinking to myself, when Mando's negotiating with Timothy Oliphant, who, by the way, Timothy Oliphant,
It's the fucking man, Oliphant.
the
I
man.
think.
stole the
fucking
fucking
man.
show.
He always
He
does.
was-
He was
it's incredible.
the best
He
part
was-
of the entire
I don't know.
episode.
I don't
like
know how a
everything
man
he's
could
in,
be
yeah.
so wooden but so awesome. Like he's not like he's like a stiff piece of wood,
He's
but he's
awesome.
awesome. Justified
He's
is fucking incredible.
I think
Fucking
he's
best.
doing.
The
I
fucking
think he's
best.
doing. He's working his charisma to a
He's so good. in it. He's
fine-tuned
so good.
instrument, man.
And the
he
fact-
knows what he's doing. But
the fact, just
Body
like
language,
his
everything.
character,
Mm.
but his character, the fact that he literally is told what's in this container is worth more than your entire town,
Yeah.
and he just dumps out the container because of the
Yeah.
spice. You're like,
Fucking
this
badass.
guy's,
and
that's
he
like,
looks at it with
yeah,
contempt
that's
as
some
it's
like
going
Vito
out.
Corleone shit. Like, you know,
I love
like,
it.
Yes,
no,
yes,
no
yeah,
drugs,
it-
no,
like, it-
no
We do
heroin.
olive oil, you know. We do some gambling. They turn a blind eye. That's a terrible Marlon
It's a
Brando.
harmless vice.
It's a harmless
Dope.
But anyway, what I was going to say was, while Mando's negotiating with the man, I was thinking to myself, does he even realize that he's trying to convince a bunch of innocent town people to help his gangster friend rule a criminal empire? And then I was thinking to myself, this kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones. And even the storytelling is kind of Game of Thrones for the last couple of episodes. Because Game of Thrones, you'll be following Jon Snow or Terry or Dany Targaryen, and then you'll just fucking leave them alone for like an episode or two, and then you'll jump back to them to see what they've been up to. And similar in character, Dany Targaryen, if anyone who's ever watched Game of Thrones, they would know that she was the rightful queen of the Westeros because of her blood and dragons or whatever.
Mm.
But like, she never questioned why she should ever be queen. And the show kind of sets her up as like this hero. And then, spoiler alert, by the
I
end,
never
she
saw it
becomes
that way. Yeah.
And spoiler alert, by the end, she fucking flips out and just kills everybody.
Yeah.
And then, if you really think about it, over the whole show, if you're really astute, you should, like, because there were times even when I was watching it, I'm like, why is everyone so behind this person just because she says I am queen? They're like, well, she is queen. But like, and so the point is, not to get down that path, I want to talk about Boba. Boba is like, hey, I want to rule this criminal empire, and I need my friends to help out. And like, hey, man, you're a cool dude. I'll help you out. And they're helping them out. And then like, no one's ever really thinking about the fact that like, what the fuck are we doing? You know, like, because they're all bad guys. But Mando in particular, it's like, but it's like,
but this ties back to what he's doing.
This is not a complaint, though. I want to make sure this is not a complaint.
Stop complaining, John.
This is not a complaint. This is just like, I was making me think like, I'm not sure if everyone is quite aware of who exactly they're helping out and why they're helping them out. Like, Fennec owes Boba her life. So I get that. And she's like, she basically has nothing else better to do as far as we know, because they haven't given that much backstory. But everyone else, it's like kind of business as usual. And it seems very business oriented. And now that Timothy Oliphant and Mando are involved, morals are starting to seep into his scheme. And that might come into conflict, especially if someone like Luke Skywalker comes back to Tatooine with Grogu and he's like, what the fuck are you doing hanging out with these gangsters trying to rule this criminal empire? So I feel like this is going to become a powder keg in a way that's beyond the Pikes. I think this is going to be a thing where it's like, they really need to look into like what it is they're doing and why they're doing it as characters.
I was just going to say the reason with the Game of Thrones comparison is one, when people were complaining because it's like, and then out of nowhere she turned, I was like, or did you just not pay attention for the entire series? But also the reason why that works, like you made that comparison, but like if Game of Thrones was called The Book of Ned Stark and it did that same thing, you'd be like, what the hell is going on here? Like Ned's like not in it, like hardly at all. You know,
I actually disagreed. Like that would make sense. Like him dying started the whole story.
The catalyst for the whole show.
Or if it was, but I'm saying, or like the
I
book
understand
of,
what you're
the book of Jamie Lannister, right? Like
Yeah.
you're just going to be like, what is going?
I understand what you're saying.
What is going
I understand
on?
what you're saying.
Yeah.
What John was saying about the what's her name from Game of Thrones.
Mhm.
I don't know how I was going to tie this in somehow. I basically was going to say like I actually appreciated that she did that, and then what Zizek had to say with like how I think he loved it because it's like, yeah, that's the American Empire, you know, like we're the good guys,
not
and
only
then
that,
we'll
it's
burn
like-
down a city, and we're like, yeah, we're good, right? And I'm kind of, and I guess all
We're still good,
basically,
right?
I want Zizek to watch
Team
Book
America.
of Boba
fuck
Fett, and
yeah.
I want to hear what he has to say about it.
I would pay money for
the Mandalorian.
He'd be like, well, if Herzog's in it, I mean, it's definitely worth my time.
That's true.
Wrapping up, I think we're all really pretty excited, or at least looking forward, or at least curious about
Yeah,
what's going to
yeah.
happen next week. I don't want to be
Curious.
excited.
Curious
curious.
is for sure. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, it was
I am.
good. It's fun. I like
am.
it. Yeah.
You know, it's something I said in multiple episodes, but like, I still don't know what they're going to do. I could surmise there's going to be a climax. There's going to be a shootout, a battle. There's going to be like a powder keg moment. I don't know what that moment's going to be. I threw out a couple of ideas, but like this show could really kind of go anywhere. And there's a level of excitement to like just not knowing where exactly it's going to go.
I mean, season finale of Mando was incredible. So
I wouldn't say we don't know where it's going to go. We know that there is going to be a showdown. We just don't.
Yeah, but we don't know
the
like,
outcome.
usually like when
The
Aragorn
pipes
I
are
think
going
it's
to float up. Yeah.
but like
I think
when
correct.
yeah,
when
with
they
that
go to the Death Star,
the Untouchables scene at the end.
like in any other Star Wars movie, when they go to blow up the Death Star, or when in Lord of the Rings, when the Fellowship goes to the Black Gate, we know what's going to happen. We know that like, oh, these guys are going to fight these guys, and you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
like,
but in
the
any
Book of Boba
spaghetti
Fett, it's like-
western, you don't necessarily know who's going to come out on top.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't like I don't know like which good guys are going to die, which good guys are going to betray other good guys.
Yeah, I mean,
What left turns it's going to take, and that's what I'm saying. It's like I honestly just don't know where it's going to go because
Boba Fett's going to die, and Fennec Shan's going to take over the Syndicate.
Oh, the book of
Shan.
Shan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's going to be the new crime lord on Tatooine and just erase Boba Fett.
I don't. If they kill off Boba Fett after this season,
Might as
like,
well.
But in
They
your
could.
point of view, but like, no, they could. But then it's like, like literally, why? Like, what was the point to bring him? Not even
Star
give him his
Wars.
own, like, but like, yeah, but nothing happened with him. Like, why would you just bring him out just to kill him? That makes zero sense.
I have a super important point that this just reminded me. One of the factors of Star Wars that we often don't talk about is how hard life is in the Star Wars universe. Like at any point, it's kind of like the old
it
West.
depends on
Like,
who you are,
at any point,
where
someone
you are.
at any point someone could shoot you, take your money, take your stuff. Like you have no defense. There's very little law, especially like post Empire. Like sure, there's some like X-wing police out in the atmosphere, you know, outside the outer ring of the planet, but like there's really not much law going on. So you at any time you can be killed or harmed or have your possessions taken from you. So living in the Star Wars universe, like young Boba Fett, without his father, like maybe, you know, he hops in the ship and maybe goes back to Camino and maybe has some support there, but like it was probably hard for him growing up, and he grew some real tough skin. The same applies to pretty much anyone in the Star Wars universe that's kind of on their own. The gunslinger, he didn't have a good end in that Mando episode. It's not easy to live in the Star Wars universe. So I feel like whatever happens, I think we forget that like people shouldn't live as long as they do in Star Wars, and we should expect that more people should die. I don't know if that's on like the bulletin board at the Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett office, if it's on Filoni's bulletin board, but like people should be dying more often, more regularly, and you should be like, you shouldn't. We take for granted that characters are going to be there in the next episode. We haven't seen a lot of deaths.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true. But like, also, I was just gonna say, like, I'm all for it, but I think Game of Thrones did this thing where people want like, oh, who's gonna live, who's gonna die. It's like, never kill off a character just for the sake of killing off a character. If it has no point, then don't do it, because otherwise it's just shock value. And
Red
we've
Wedding.
seen that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Red Wedding
but-
actually had
but
a
that
huge
actually had a
point.
point.
Had a
Like,
huge,
it's just-
huge plot point.
No, yeah, I think what Murray is saying is that people who watched it are mistaking the
For shock.
yeah.
Yeah.
like,
So they're like,
it's it's if there's no reason for anybody to die except for the fact that, like, oh man, it's such a happy ending and that sucks. Well, then it's a happy ending and it sucks. Like, that's what Spielberg does. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if there's no reason to kill off a character, don't do it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
It's like when I think there's a scene in one of the Zack Snyder movies where Lois Lane is like abroad and she's with another reporter and he gets executed. And I think
I think they
like,
kill Jimmy Olsen.
That's what I was going to say. Zack Snyder was like, oh yeah, that character, he was actually supposed to be Jimmy Olsen or something like that. And to Murray's point, it's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, just to shock people to be like, Jimmy's dead. Anyone can die. But it's like Batman, it's like that type of thing. But
well, yeah, that filmmaker is of a different quality.
Well, we won't go. It's a whole other thing to just go into other universes and all that. But I think it just, if they're going to do something, I think Star Wars actually does it pretty well with like
and when
death. Usually when someone dies, it's for a distinct purpose.
When I said Red Wedding, I was thinking of shock value. And I understand that there's a point of the story.
Yeah.
I was thinking like I hadn't read the books, so for me, like, that was the most shock. I was also hate watching that show, but that was the most that was the most shocking thing I had seen probably almost ever on TV, of the sense of the volume of death and destruction. And so I'm just thinking strictly on shock value, not on like story purpose. Like the Sarlacc pit should have been more shocking death, I think. We knew that guy way back, and like and now just done, dead, lost the world, and no real recourse, and no funeral, and just sad. I wanted a burp or a belch, like a going out, like a last gasp or a tendril. Nothing.
You want George Lucas's kookiness.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do.
Because if George Lucas were directing this, he definitely would have had a death belch.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then somebody came in. Yeah. Then there would have been a song and dance number for some reason.
That reminds me, when I was watching the end of Return of the Jedi, Vader has that no moment.
Yeah.
And after watching it for, I don't know, whatever time, but I was watching, I was like, I guess that's fine. I just don't care anymore about like.
The thing about,
but it's like, I guess it's fine.
I don't want to get off on a tangent.
Do it.
To quote Dennis Miller, who I don't like anymore, but the thing that I admitted a whole bunch of episodes ago, where Vader's no in Revenge of the Sith really never bothered me until I realized how much it really bothered other people, and then now I can't unsee it. But if you accept that moment as a genuine moment, then the no that he added to Return of the Jedi really resonates.
It's a full circle thing.
Yeah. And for George Lucas, obviously he believes in the truth of both of those moments.
Yes.
And so if it works for you on that level, then it's actually really appropriate, is all I'll say about that.
What I will always say, because it's always execution. And I feel like it's one of those moments where the execution of it originally was perfect. They didn't have to do anything. And then putting the no in there was like, I just want people to make sure they really know the intention as to why Darth Vader's doing this. It's like, we know, like, we don't have to.
Well, that was
it's like spelling it out to the audience. It's like, we kind of got it when he picked him up and threw him into a fucking pit.
but also in that scene, what was so crazy about that scene, and even though like Jedi's not, the best one, but like they managed to have, when Luke's getting zapped, right, and it keeps cutting to Vader, like, there's emotion.
Yeah.
You're seeing emotion from Vader, and it's literally just the same helmet that you've always been seeing. Like,
we are projecting the gears turning in his head as it's happening.
But
with the
there's
music
something about
and
the way
light.
it's shot and the
magic of it's the magic of filmmaking, baby. It's the magic of movies. It's the magic of movies. There's something that happens between the screen and the mind of the viewer, and that's where the magic happens.
It's like an agreement.
Yeah.
One last thing I do want to note before we sign off is that my sister and her husband got me a very lovely gift to mark the launch of the podcast. It's actually a sliver of the skeleton from the Crate Dragon prop.
Oh shit!
No
Yeah, it's like
shit.
it's a very tiny sliver, and I just wanted to
That's
say thank
awesome.
you. I really appreciate that. And note that prop was the skeleton of a dinosaur from the 1975 Disney comedy One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, and was thrown on the plane of props flying to Tunisia because it was laying around and they thought it might give them some more production
it.
value.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
That's
so the
awesome.
Disney connection has been there since the beginning.
I love it. Well, hey, Star Tours, man. I mean, they've always had a close relationship.
All right, everybody. The melee, the showdown, the final battle next week.
Oh, just think of how much we're gonna have a melee here.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have like a 3-hour
Yeah.
session. It's gonna be a long
I'm
one.
looking at you, Ross.
I got my brass knuckles.
All right, everyone. I still haven't figured out a fucking sign off for this shit. So goodbye, everyone. Fuck off.